Alright, so as single, what you want to do in this exercise is you're given this array of integers, um, suppose this one, and the idea is that you want to check if every item on the right has been checked. Um, One of the naive ways to solve that is having, for example, um, like the thing is that um, you have to check for every element, and one of the naive ways to solve this is thinking, okay, I'm going to be mapping the amount of time it goes this to this index, and this index, and then that map will be true or false. But if we do a solution like that one, what I think it will happen is that you had to. Actually, that's a good solution. Yeah, it's just probably space n based on the array. I don't really see a problem here. You just loop through things, but yeah, there might be a problem that if I you loop through things like by the amount of elements, and if everything checks out, then you are going to have that element, right? Okay, so the idea here is that then to solve this, what we can do is make a program. Uh, Another way to mathematically solve this is to think how many times you can go through every array. If we say that hypothetically speaking, you can only the idea is that if you go through every subject, then by the end it should be in index 0. I want to confirm that, and yeah, we want to make sure also that what is going on is that it's not like 1 and negative 1 and then you have all these elements and then going right left until you find yourself to the first element again. um, so one of the solutions is to right so here let's go to this solution over here. Where we have is that we have the number of elements visit by the a single cycle, and then if that's less than if the amount of times we visit something is less than the length of the array, then we go trying to increase that, and if the number of visits is larger than 0 and the current index is 0, then return false, which means that it's going if the current index is in 0, but the amount of ways that have been visited there is larger is larger than 0, then there's a problem, right? Then it means that is already on the current index, which means that something like this might be happening, like flipping over here. We had to make sure that it exactly ends up at 1 by then, when the array of element is exactly with the number of elements visited is exactly the array of element, and we confirm that by checking if the current index is 0. Yeah, so let's go to why this works. It works mostly because we had to check first that this doesn't happen, and then check that you have an array and that, right? It kind of goes there, and that it visits if that happens, and at the end it visits the first element, then it means that it is indeed working, right? So let's try coding that out. We first set up the function, and the function we're going to call it headnets, And the idea here is that we want to know which index is followed next and the array. So that's what's going to be the inputs required for making this work. So we set up as the next index as the plus array index on all these modulo array dot length. And but here what we still can have is that we can have a negative number, so we want to return the next index, and only if it is negative we have to do something different, right? So if it's negative we want to discount the count to the range of length. So what might happen is that if it goes to like -4, then it means going from here -4, and the way to code that is here we have array.length minus next index, and sorry, here we should show you a question mark. Otherwise we return the next index as it is, as it should be fine. So now here we want to write the code where we check at the end we check if it's the same element. So we can do this by either creating a for loop, or no, because we want it to break, so probably a while loop should be fine enough. And the idea is that we have the current index, which is array dot length. No, sorry, what I'm saying. Current index, and we have the I think that's it. So we have while amount of traverse set. So this is going to be counting the amount of times it traverses. So we need this to count how many traverses it did. If it did more than 6 in this case, then we know that there is some problem ahead. And the idea here is that if it is less than 6, then it should be working, and we can have like amount of we can say that while the amount of traverse set is less than array.length, we want to check something, right? If the case is that after the first element it is the first index, the current index is the first index, then we have a problem there. So if amount of traverse is larger than 0 and the current index is equals to 0, then we want to return false, because then it means that we are back on the first index, but there's a problem there, right? It's not really, we are back to it. And now if that's the case, then we return false, meaning that it went back. And if that's the case, then by the end, when we count amount of traverse is equal to array.length, it didn't went through every element, right? Otherwise, if that's not the case, we create the current index as the head next, and we say current index and amount. No, sorry, array. We don't really care about the amount here. After that, we return true if the if the current index is equals to 0, which means we are back on the on sorry, an amount of traversed plus plus, which means that if that's the case, then we are back to the origin, which means that it traverses through everything and it jumps back and it completes the single cycle check. Yeah, no, let's see what's going on. Okay, true, false. Remember, plus, because if it's negative, then we want to add it to the result. Let's see, have some tests. Let's see. Oh, false is notified. False. There you go. If we submit codes, it should work perfectly. Yeah, that was my bad. I thought of rethinking of some random stuff. That's how it happens when you do